30-second takes. A hot topic that we have discussed multiple times on this show that is very divisive. And in some ways, it's the first argument we ever had in the office before we started the podcast. It surrounds Mike Tomlin and the Pittsburgh Steelers. So for this evening, since we know he's on a little bit of a hot seat and he's been in the national news, let's get started on, is Mike Tomlin overrated after losing again in the first round of the playoffs? Noah, I'm going to kick it to you first. Put yourself on the timer and let us know what you think about our friend Mike Tomlin.
Well, he's not my friend because he's very, very overrated. Let me just list some things that have happened since Mike Tomlin's last playoff win. Tom Brady has won 3 Super Bowls. Dan Quinn took the Falcons to the Super Bowls. Dan Quinn was fired by the Falcons. Dan Quinn spent 3 years as the Cowboys DC. Dan Quinn got hired by the Commanders. Dan Quinn took the Commanders to the playoffs and won a playoff game. He is overrated. He cannot win. They need to just blow the whole thing up in Pittsburgh and start it fresh because they are in football purgatory.
Or fair purgatory. Points. Eric?
Because I said purgatory wrong because I saw the timer and it made me sweat a little bit. You're right. My bad. That one's on me.
Listen, put that timer up. I started to sway today in the office talking to our resident Steeler fan, Michael. But then once again, I looked up the playoff record. They lost this year to Baltimore, who's a very good team and could go on to win a Super Bowl. In 2023, they lost to Buffalo. Before that, the Super Bowl champs Chiefs. Before that, the Browns and Jaguars, say what you will. The Browns steamrolled them that year. This timer is too short today because we got to keep going. Before that, they lost in the conference championship to...
Anyway, John, so how are you tonight?
I knew it was
the Super Bowl winning Patriots. Before that, they lost to Cincinnati, who would go on to the Super Bowl. Before that, they lost to a good Baltimore team. Before that, they lost to a Peyton Manning Super Bowl winning Denver team. My point is, yeah, they haven't won a lot of playoff games, for sure. But Mike Tomlin does more with less than any coach. Now, I get it. Noah's argument is, well, he doesn't do more with more when he has a stacked roster with Roethlisberger, with Antonio Brown, etc. But he ran into buzzsaws like we've never seen before. Patriots, dynasty. Chiefs, dynasty. I don't know what you want from the man.
Yeah, and no, you can throw up another 30 seconds. I'll jump in on this because I want to piggyback.
Sorry, I know that was like 120, but go on.
Well, yeah, Eric just thinks he can play against the rules now, but I digress.
Right. I'm the host tonight. I make the rules. I'll allow it because he's on my side, so I'll let him go as long as he wants. Yeah, I agree with Eric. The thing that you didn't list when you were rattling all those things off that happened is that Mike Tomlin had to try to win games. He's never had a losing season in any of those seasons with people like Mason Rudolph, Kenny Hodges, Justin Fields, or washed up Russ Wilson and Mitchell Trubisky as a starting quarterback. I wouldn't exactly call that a recipe for success from the front office of the Steelers. But the biggest question, like we always say with these, is not so much who do you have, it's who are you going to get. Before you get rid of a guy like Tomlin, you better make damn sure you got somebody as good to replace him. And I think Steelers fans will regret letting him go about 6 games into the next season when they have a replacement, unless they could convince somebody like Belichick or something to come there and try to get things going again.
I know we've sure Belichick could coach that team.
I know we've beat this dead horse, guys. We've done this as a full-blown topic before, and that's all fine and dandy, but you got to look at what he's done in terms of like facing. I mean, he had some of the most talented rosters. I always go back to the AB, Bell, Big Ben, the Killer Bees, and they did nothing with that. Yeah, he ran into Tom Brady.
They went to the conference championship. More talented than the Patriots?
They were more
6-time Super Bowl winning Patriots? That's asinine. I'm sorry, no.
It's not. You guys just got done telling me why Lamar Jackson is not you guys. Noah got done telling me why hands down Lamar Jackson's the MVP because he's the greatest thing since sliced bread, and that's who they drew in the first round of the playoffs. Do you think they were going to put up 48 points and win?
No, but I think if Mike Tomlin's that good, he should be able to win one of these games, whether it be us back in 2021, whether it be any of the other matchups. If he is this great godsend to football that we all act like we don't all, I don't act like he is. Steelers fans don't act like he is. There were fans leaving the game at halftime because it was another Mike Tomlin masterclass. I don't get the
he's
hype
not
on
throwing
this guy.
and catching the ball. He's coaching. I mean, I think what you're putting on this guy's shoulders is ridiculous. We were ecstatic when we won one playoff game. This guy leads them to the playoffs every single year. The fact that you say that it's a more talented roster than the Patriots in their prime is just crazy. The only thing that I'll give you, hold on, no, I'm talking. The only thing I'll give you is twofold. I think that he's a bad in-game decision maker. He could do better there. And I think he's a bad hirer. His coaching tree, which I don't really care about a coaching tree, but it's a little non-existent. If that's the case, if he can't make a good hire offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator, then that's the Steelers' organizational failure, not his.
Yeah. Part
they
of
need
the
to pull back a little
coach
bit.
is in on that, Eric. The coach is a part of that. The coach doesn't
Stefanski's appointing all these coaches and OCs. No, we know that's not true. We know exactly.
Yes, it is. He's a part of the decision.
He's a part of it, but he's not making it. So he brought in Watson on his own. Come on, there's other people in charge ahead of them. There's a president of football operations.
I agree that there's other people in charge. When you're talking about the coaching staff, though, the coach typically brings in most of the coaching, decides what he wants with coaching. He is the top cream of the crop when it comes to that. Just as the GM is the cream of the crop, supposedly, unless you have Jimmy Haslam as an owner, to pick the players, just as the owner is the cream of the crop to pick who the coach and the GM are. It's the organizational structure of the thing.
Sure, and when people are directing things downhill, you have bosses. You don't just get to say, well, that's not your job, buddy.
I will say that
I want to hear what John has
to wrap up some of these pieces. I don't think having people from your coaching tree succeed or not succeed means you're a bad head coach. Might mean you're a bad boss. You can't develop the people who are under you, and maybe you don't want to work for them, but you're not gonna rank a head coach all the time based on who else from his coaching tree did well other places. I will say I understand Steeler fan leaving the game at halftime. It's the same argument we have to a certain extent with Ryan Day. When your fan base is used to one thing and they don't get it, they're spoiled. We're talking about whether or not Ryan Day should be fired. If he loses to Notre Dame in this national championship game, we wouldn't put up with this at Ohio State. So I get where the Steeler fans are coming from. But something else, Noah, I wanted to make abundantly clear to you. The question isn't, do you think Mike Tomlin is the greatest coach in the history of the NFL? Question was, do you think he's overrated? He is rated as a very good coach who's never had a losing record in one of the toughest divisions in football, and he deserves some respect. He is one of the best head coaches based on his record in the NFL. I don't think he's better than Andy Reid. I don't think he's perfect, and I don't think that the Steelers might not have won another game with another guy in another spot. My point is, running a dude out of town who has a borderline Hall of Fame type caliber resume, I think is ludicrous and a bit short-sighted, and I think everybody who's running him out of town is going to remember how good he was the second he's gone.
Let me ask you this, because a lot of the discourse around Mike Tomlin right now is also the idea of trading for Mike Tomlin. You guys are Browns fans. You guys, and we'll get into some of the Browns news later on. I know that, John. What would you trade for Mike Tomlin? I'm just curious, because my answer is okay. Well,
can we do a 1-for-1 swap? Because count me in.
Well, I don't 100% disagree with that. We'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah,
but
okay.
Give me like a realistic, like, don't just scapegoat it with Stefanski. What would you trade for him?
If we're talking players, I don't really want to give up players for a coach. I think that's a weird situation.
Go draft capital then.
I don't know. It's such a I don't believe in trading for a coach. I don't like that. I think Tomlin,
but he's a borderline Hall of Fame guy. Why wouldn't you want to get a borderline Hall of Fame guy in a struggling franchise?
I would take him. I think if you can spend a 6th or 7th round pick on a kicker who we end up getting rid of, who's now kicking for the Bengals, at the end of the year. I don't think there's anything wrong with burning a 7th rounder to get a guy like Tomlin in here. And I'll tell you why. We're going to talk more about this later, but some of the news we heard coming out of Berea ain't that good about culture and running the thing like you're an adult. Mike Tomlin, I think we would all agree, is a big-time culture guy. He demands accountability. He plays hard-nosed defense, and he knows how to win in this division. I don't know. Like, am I crazy to say that if we needed a coach and Stefanski were out, that Tomlin would be towards the top of my list? Is that asinine? I think that's
I don't
reasonable.
think that's crazy.
I would take him here in a heartbeat.
Sense. Here's
so
the question I would have, and I don't want to get too much further into a topic we're going to touch on a little bit later. But that being said, I do wonder how Tomlin would go up against our ownership. Like, that fit would be like this. I don't know how that would work.
Let me ask you this, because I was going somewhere with this, and I know we should probably move on and all of that. But say Andy Reid hits the open market, and they're facilitating trades for Andy Reid. What would you give up for him?
Whatever they asked for. We just gave up
Okay.
a boatload of first-round picks for Deshaun Watson to watch him suck, snap his Achilles, and never do anything productive. If the Chiefs actually were getting rid of Andy Reid and actually said they'd trade him for a first-round pick, I would absolutely give our first-round pick this year to have Andy Reid for an extended period.
First-round pick?
Absolutely.
You think he makes that much of a I mean, he has a Hall of Famer in Mahomes. You think his coaching makes that much of a difference?
I'd like to find out. I'd rather have him than Shedeur Sanders. And I don't hate Shedeur Sanders.
I don't know. That's a tough one for me. I don't know if I spend a first rounder for Andy Reid.
It's just interesting to me. And I think we've already all come to the decision that we are going to agree to disagree on this topic till the end of time. If he is that worthwhile in my mind, I am of the mindset of John. I would give up a lot for him, just as we would have given up a lot for a starting franchise quarterback. We tried that, blew up in our face. Talk about that in a little bit.
Yes.
But he just doesn't, he's not that good. He's just not that good.
I think he's a leader of men, and that's what you need in coaching.
And that's going to have to be the last word, Mr. Olson. I can't mute you because I don't have the mute button.